Well, hello, this is Pastor Brian Anderson, and we're going to look at another commonly misunderstood verse of Scripture. It's also a very famous and popular verse of Scripture. It's Romans 8:28, which says, "And we know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose." Now, this verse is often misunderstood. People think it means that God is going to cause everything that happens in the world to work together for good for everyone. And they interpret good to mean temporary earthly success. So let's take a look at that. What does the verse actually mean? Well, number one, it doesn't apply to everyone in the world. The verse itself tells us that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God. Who are they? They are those who are called according to his purpose. So this is a verse for Christians. This is a verse for true believers in Jesus Christ. What does it mean that God has called someone according to his purpose? Well, that's talking about God's effectual call, how God draws a person to Christ, causes them to be born again, justifies them by his grace, and does a work of sanctification in their life. So this is talking about true, regenerate children of God. Number one, that's who it's for. And then number two, what is the good that God causes all things to work together for? Is it talking about temporary earthly success? Is it talking about a better job, money in the bank, a nice home, 2 cars in the garage, on and on and on? Well, no, it's not talking about that at all. The next verse 29, explains what Paul means in verse 28. And you notice in verse 29, he begins with the word for. Well, the word for tells you that he's going to explain what he has just said. So verse 29 is an explanation of verse 28. In verse 28, he says, God causes all things to work together for good. What is that good? Verse 29 tells us, for whom he foreknew, he also predestined to become conformed to the image of his Son. There's the good. To be conformed to the image of Jesus Christ. The good has nothing to do with temporary earthly success, nothing to do with riches, money, wealth, health. It has to do with being conformed into the image of Jesus. We call that sanctification or personal holiness or growth in godliness. So what the verse is actually saying is that Christians know that God causes all things to work together for good towards them, and the good that he's working all things together for is that they would grow in godliness and personal holiness. So that's really what Paul was trying to communicate in Romans 8:28. I hope that's helpful for you, and I will see you on the next video.